The fog clung to the countryside like a thick, suffocating blanket as our van rumbled up the uneven dirt path to Rosewood Manor. My name's Alex, and I've been chasing the paranormal for years with my closest friends, Liz and Tony. Tonight, we were determined to uncover the truth behind the manor's sinister reputation. Rosewood Manor stood before us, an imposing silhouette against the moonlit sky. Its windows, like hollow eyes, stared into the dark. The air felt heavy, laced with the scent of damp earth and decaying wood. I glanced at Liz and Tony. Liz clutched her locket, a golden heirloom from her grandmother, while Tony lugged his camera gear. "This place has seen better days," Tony muttered, his voice uneasy. We stepped through the front door, its hinges groaning in protest. Inside, the manor seemed to breathe, the creaks and groans of old wood creating a symphony of unease. Setting up our equipment was routine. Motion detectors, cameras, and EVP recorders. We'd done this 100 times before, yet Rosewood Manor felt different. It wasn't just the eerie atmosphere. There was something alive in the silence. As I adjusted a thermal camera, Liz's startled gasp broke the quiet. "My locket," she exclaimed, her fingers frantically searching her neck. "It's gone?" Tony frowned. "Are you sure it didn't just fall?" "No," Liz said, her voice trembling. The clasp was secure. We searched the room, but the locket had vanished. Then came the sound, a faint melodic humming. It was distant, yet hauntingly beautiful, like a lullaby carried on the wind. "You hear that?" I whispered. Liz nodded, her eyes wide. "It's coming from upstairs." We followed the sound, each step on the creaking staircase feeling like a gamble. At the top, the humming led us to a dilapidated bedroom. Dust-coated furniture sat like forgotten memories, and cobwebs draped the corners like ghostly veils. There, on an old vanity, lay Liz's locket. Beside it was an antique music box. Cautiously, Liz reached for her locket. As her fingers brushed it, the music box sprang open. A slow, haunting melody played, and inside was a faded photograph. A young woman, her eyes kind but sad, wearing the very same locket. "Who is she?" Tony asked, leaning in for a closer look. The air shifted, warmer somehow, as though an unseen presence enveloped us. I felt a faint tug, not on my body, but on my senses, like someone urging us onward. Liz turned to us, her face pale but determined. "She's guiding us?" The pull led us to the attic, a space thick with dust and forgotten relics. There, on a weathered table, lay a diary. Its cover was cracked with age, the name, Rose, etched faintly on its surface. Liz opened it carefully, and we read by flashlight. Rose was a maid at Rosewood Manor long ago. Her words painted a picture of kindness and diligence, but the entries grew darker. She wrote of accusations of theft, cruel punishments, and her eventual imprisonment in the attic. Her final entry was a plea for forgiveness she didn't deserve. A wave of sadness washed over me. This wasn't the story of a vengeful spirit, but a woman wronged and forgotten. We decided to conduct an EVP session. The recorder felt heavy in my hand as I asked, "Rose, are you here with us?" Silence followed, stretching uncomfortably long until the recorder crackled. "I am," a faint, sorrowful voice replied. Liz's hand trembled as she asked, "Why did they accuse you?" Another pause, then, "Jealousy? The voice broke my heart. Rose wasn't seeking vengeance. She wanted to be understood, to clear her name. As we delved deeper into the attic, Liz gasped and pointed to a loose floorboard. Underneath, we found a hidden chamber. Inside were artifacts, a ledger, jewelry, and letters. All proof that Rose's employer had framed her to cover up their own embezzlement. "We have to take this to the authorities," Tony said, his voice firm. But before we could move, a warm, comforting sensation enveloped us. It was as if Rose herself was thanking us. We packed the artifacts carefully and prepared to leave. As we descended the stairs, I felt a gentle touch on my shoulder. Not alarming, but tender. I turned, but no one was there. Liz and Tony felt it too, the unmistakable presence of Rose saying goodbye. Outside, The fog seemed to lift as we loaded the van. I glanced back at Rosewood Manor. Its oppressive air was gone, replaced by something lighter, almost peaceful. We drove away, knowing we hadn't just encountered a ghost. We'd met a soul. Rose wasn't a specter to be feared, but a reminder of the power of truth and kindness. Weeks later, Liz's locket, always securely fastened, would sometimes feel warm, as though Rose was still with us, her gratitude eternal. And whenever I think of Rosewood Manor, it's not with fear, but with reverence for the benevolent spirit of Rose. It was a quiet evening in the English countryside, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and the lingering chill of early spring. My name is Elena Marsh, and for the last 6 years, I've been part of an investigative team that specializes in the strange and unexplained. Our latest case was more unusual than most. Reports of ghostly lights flickering through the windows of a dilapidated Victorian greenhouse, deep in the heart of the countryside. I'd seen my share of bizarre phenomena, but something about the greenhouse called to me, a deep pull that whispered of secrets long buried. We were a small team of 5. My assistant, Marcus, a seasoned skeptic, Carla, our tech expert, always equipped with the latest gadgets to record the supernatural, and 2 interns, Sarah and David, both eager and naive, still green in the world of paranormal investigation. It was late in the afternoon when we finally arrived at the greenhouse, the imposing structure looming like a forgotten relic from another time. Its glass panes were cracked and smeared with dirt, the iron frame rusted and barely holding together. The once vibrant colors of the plants inside had long since faded, leaving only the skeletal remains of what had once been a beautiful garden. Our task was to investigate the strange lights people had reported seeing for years and the unusually rapid and unnatural growth of certain plants inside. Some claimed the flowers bloomed in the dead of winter, while others swore that shadows moved between the rows of foliage when no one was present. As we entered, the air inside was stifling, heavy with the scent of decay. The plants, though mostly wilted and overgrown, seemed to pulse with a strange, unearthly energy, their tendrils twisting in unnatural directions, as if reaching out for something or someone. We made our way deeper into the greenhouse, our footsteps echoing through the empty space. My breath came in shallow gasps as I moved, the temperature shifting suddenly, as if a chill wind had swept through. I could feel the hair on the back of my neck stand on end. Something was watching us. I didn't know what, but it was there. "Do you see that?" Marcus asked, his voice low, almost afraid. I followed his gaze to a set of glowing footprints in the dirt, each one pulsating softly, as though the ground itself was alive. I stepped closer to the marks, my boots sinking slightly into the earth as I examined them. The footprints led toward the farthest corner of the greenhouse, where a faint glow seemed to emanate from beneath the tangled vines and overgrown flowers. The air felt charged, alive with an electric hum. Carla pulled out her camera, capturing the eerie light, her usual confidence shaken. "There's something here, Elena. I can feel it." I nodded, feeling the hairs on my arms prickle. The footprints, glowing faintly, were now joined by strange vines that crept along the floor, twisting and writhing like snakes. It was a sight both beautiful and terrifying. We followed the trail deeper into the greenhouse, our footsteps growing more cautious. Then it happened. A figure appeared before us. It was a man, dressed in old-fashioned gardening clothes, mud-streaked trousers, and a worn, faded jacket, with a patch on the shoulder that I couldn't quite make out. His face was pale, almost translucent, his eyes deep and hollow. He seemed out of place, like a ghost, yet his presence was unmistakably solid. His expression was calm, but there was an unmistakable sorrow in his gaze. "You shouldn't be here," the man said, his voice soft but filled with a quiet authority. "This place is not what it seems." I took a cautious step forward, my heart racing. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice trembling despite my best efforts to stay composed. "I am Mr. Bellamy," he replied, a sad smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "I was the gardener here long ago. This was my life's work." He gestured to the overgrown plants surrounding us, their twisted forms taking on an almost sinister quality in the dim light. And now it's something else? My mind raced. I had read about the greenhouse before, its mysterious reputation, the once prominent botanical research it had conducted. Mr. Bellamy, I now realized, must have been the head gardener at the time of the experiment that had gone horribly wrong, turning the greenhouse into a haunted place of twisted flora and dark energy. What happened here? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Mr. Bellamy's eyes darkened as he looked down at the ground. A fool's ambition, he said, shaking his head slowly. Years ago, a scientist, Dr. Thorne, came here with grand ideas. He wanted to create a new breed of plants, ones that could heal diseases. But in his arrogance, he unleashed something far more dangerous. He paused, his gaze flickering toward a corner of the room, where dark, vine-like tendrils crawled up the walls, their colors unnatural, green tinged with purple, yellow streaked with black. He experimented with spores, fungi from other parts of the world. But they were far more aggressive than anyone realized. The plants grew out of control. Some became toxic, others twisted into horrific forms. And the fungi spread, corrupting everything they touched. Are the plants still dangerous? Sarah asked, stepping forward. Her voice trembled with a mix of fear and curiosity. They are, Mr. Bellamy replied, his voice heavy with regret. But not just the plants. The spores have spread to the land itself. I have tried to contain it, but I am not strong enough. His eyes locked with mine, and for a moment, I saw a glimmer of hope in them. You must stop the fungus before it spreads beyond this place. I cannot do it alone. The air around us grew colder, the vines pulsing with an almost malevolent energy. I could hear the faint hum of something, a whisper, barely audible. It was the plants themselves, calling out, seeking something or someone. How do we stop it? I asked, my voice steady despite the fear clawing at me. Mr. Bellamy's gaze softened. You must find the source. There's a room beneath the greenhouse, beneath the floorboards. That's where the fungi began. If you destroy it, the plants will die, and the curse will end. Without another word, he disappeared, his form fading into the mist like a forgotten memory. We made our way to the trapdoor he had mentioned, hidden beneath a thick layer of vines. As we descended into the damp, dark chamber beneath the greenhouse, the air grew heavier, thicker with a musty scent of decay. We found it the center of the corruption, a mass of fungus, black and pulsing, spread across the floor, glowing with an eerie light. At its core was a single shriveled flower, the source of all the twisted growths. Carla quickly set up the equipment to neutralize the spores, while Marcus and I began to carefully cut away the infected vines, their tendrils recoiling as if they were alive. It was slow work, but we had to be precise. As we completed the task, the air around us seemed to clear. The weight pressing down on us lifted, the glow from the plants dimmed, and a sense of peace settled over the greenhouse. In the days that followed, the greenhouse began to heal. The plants, though still wild, were no longer dangerous. The community decided to restore it as a botanical garden, honoring the memory of Mr. Bellamy and the legacy of the once great research conducted there. When the restoration was complete, the garden was filled with rare plants, some of which had medicinal properties that could help heal the very diseases Dr. Thorne had once sought to cure. The greenhouse stood as a testament to the forgotten gardener's dedication and the unseen consequences of human ambition. Mr. Bellamy's ghost never returned, but sometimes, when I walk through the garden, I feel his presence lingering in the air, watching over the plants he had once tended so lovingly. And though the greenhouse is now a place of life, I know that somewhere, deep in the earth, the shadow of the fungal growth still waits, silent, patient, and hungry for the next experiment.